The reason the police potentially moved on Andrew's 66th birthday early this morning, the cars turned up at Sandringham at 8 a.m, was because the disgraced Duke was preparing to flee the country.
February 2nd, 2026, the night a prince learned that even royal blood can't buy loyalty forever. When the clock struck midnight, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor slipped out of Royal Lodge under a blanket of darkness. But this wasn't some grand royal farewell.
Watch.
This is not a development I expected quite so quickly. I welcome it. It's in many ways long overdue. There's been so much evidence mounting against him. And I was very concerned that he would do a midnight flit and evade justice. And I wonder if the police have also got news along those lines. So we must now see what happens, what he's going to be charged with. But clearly there has been plenty of evidence in the Epstein releases to support this.
Now, Lowney said the cops also needed to move quickly because there are fears that papers had been destroyed.
It was a quiet, humbling escape that insiders are calling one of the most embarrassing exits in modern royal history. Still, what no one expected was that the real drama wouldn't happen during his departure. It would explode the moment he stepped foot in his new home. For the first time in his life, the people who once waited on him hand and foot just didn't show up. No staff, no service, no royal treatment. The silence was louder than any scandal. This isn't just another story about a fallen royal. It's the shocking breakdown of a system that shielded one man for decades. The big question echoing across Britain right now: how did a prince born into unimaginable privilege end up completely deserted, unable to find anyone willing to work for him anymore? And trust me, what's happening at Sandringham right now goes way deeper than just Andrew's downfall. There's something unraveling inside the royal world, something that no one at the palace wants you to see. Let's rewind to that chilling night of February 2nd. Every tiny detail counts. Royal Lodge isn't just any fancy home. It's a 30-room mansion tucked inside Windsor Great Park, a lavish estate Andrew had called his own since 2003. But that night, everything changed forever. 23 years. That's how long Prince Andrew lived in a place most people could only dream of. A mansion fit for royalty and surrounded by history itself. But on that cold Monday night, all of it came crashing down. Here's the part that stunned everyone. This wasn't a daytime move with photographers or smiling royal waves. According to a close friend quoted by The Sun and later backed up by Reuters, the move went down late at night, completely hidden from the public eye. No ceremony, no announcements, just a secret exit under the shadows.
Lowney wants to bring down the monarchy. He also said that this decision to arrest Andrew today will end up saving the monarchy. Watch.
I mean, I think the fact that they went to him at 8 o'clock in the morning suggests that they needed to move very quickly. I've written about the fact that papers have been destroyed since early December, I think with the support of other members of the royal family, and this was deeply concerning. But clearly there's enough evidence from these Epstein leaks.
Sources said it was so humiliating that it couldn't happen in daylight. Just imagine that, a prince sneaking out of his own home like a scandal had to be buried before sunrise. When was the last time a royal got moved out in the dead of night? This wasn't royal protocol. This wasn't routine. This was damage control, pure and simple. But the real question is why? Why go through all this trouble to keep it so quiet? Because Royal Lodge wasn't just a house. It was Andrew's last symbol of status, a reminder of a position he no longer truly held. That mansion wasn't just bricks and chandeliers. It stood for power, denial, and a royal past that refused to fade. Sitting deep inside Windsor Great Park, the property came with a 75-year lease starting in August 2003, a £1 million upfront premium, and another £7.5 million spent on renovations at early 2000s prices. And here's where things got messy. Those weren't private expenses. Those were taxpayer-funded costs. Parliament had every right to ask, where did all that money really go? Because when the numbers hit the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee, it wasn't just about housing, it was about accountability. And suddenly, Andrew had none left. They had already crunched the numbers. Even potential payout plans were on the table. One estimate showed around £560,000 in compensation if the lease ended by August 2026. That figure alone says it all. Andrew's housing drama was no longer a private royal issue. It had turned into a full-blown public matter, one that demanded answers and accountability. The pressure was suffocating, the spotlight harsher than ever. By February 2nd, everything finally snapped.
I think the power of the media pressure and indeed public pressure has helped push this. And I think it has been about saving the monarchy. And I think this will do the trick.
Well, I hope so. Lowney says that there are files that might be at Buckingham Palace and that the king should give up if he truly does want to cooperate with the investigation.
When Andrew walked out of Royal Lodge that night, he wasn't just leaving a mansion. He was leaving behind the last reminder of who he used to be. That building wasn't just home. It was a monument to a title, a privilege, and a reputation that had already crumbled. So where did he go next? Wood Farm, a quiet little cottage tucked away on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. And if that name sounds familiar, there's a reason. Wood Farm was where Prince Philip spent his final years after stepping down from public life. It's a place tied to withdrawal, silence, and fading from the public eye. Not one of power or influence. The contrast couldn't be more brutal. From a 30-room royal mansion in Windsor to a modest cottage in Sandringham. From spotlight to shadows, prestige to near exile. The symbolism hit hard. A prince once at the center of royal life now living on its very edge. And here's the twist. This stay wasn't even meant to last. Reports revealed Wood Farm was only a temporary stop, a brief pause before Andrew's next uncertain move to Marsh Farm. Nothing about this felt like stability. It felt like a quiet countdown to something even bigger. Rewritten version. Even as a temporary move, the message was brutal. That quiet shift to Sandringham wasn't just about space, it was about status. What it really screamed was this. Andrew was no longer wanted anywhere near the heart of the monarchy. He was being pushed out step by step to the very edges, hidden from the cameras, distanced from the palace, and erased from the royal picture as quietly as possible. But if you think the embarrassment ended with that midnight move, you're in for a shock.
The whole world is watching and waiting to see what's going to happen with Prince Andrew. And when I saw that picture and saw that he'd been arrested.
Because the real scandal was only just beginning. Within days of Andrew settling into Wood Farm, word started spreading that something strange and unheard of was happening. Reports surfaced that he couldn't even secure basic household staff. We're not talking about luxury appointments or personal valets. We're talking about essential workers needed to keep a home running. People magazine broke the story first, revealing that a long list of employees had flat out refused to serve him. Then Marie Claire backed it up, adding one key bombshell. Palace staff were actually told they didn't have to work for Andrew if they felt uncomfortable, and many didn't hesitate to say no. Let that sink in. Staff inside one of the oldest royal institutions on earth were given permission to refuse an assignment. That just doesn't happen. For centuries, royal service has operated under a strict unspoken rule. You serve who you're told to serve when you're told to serve them. No questions asked, no complaints allowed. Obedience wasn't optional, it was tradition. But in February 2026 at Sandringham of all places, that ancient system cracked for the first time. The hierarchy that had kept royals protected and powerful began to crumble right in front of him. And Andrew, the once untouchable prince, suddenly found himself completely alone. The phrase popping up everywhere was bare-bones staffing. According to Marie Claire, Andrew was left with what they called a skeleton crew, and one quote hit harder than the rest. For the first time in his life, he might have to open the front door himself. Can you picture that?
He is destroyed.
I wanted to do something we haven't really done on the channel. I was hoping you could get the picture up on your phone and I can on screen point to what you're talking about. But tell me what is it that makes it such a captivating picture?
Yeah, I mean, for a start, Phil Noble has sort of said that you take photographs through car windows. It's so difficult.
A prince, once surrounded by butlers and footmen, now standing alone to answer his own door. That single image said more than any headline ever could. This wasn't just about losing comfort, it was about a total role reversal. For decades, Andrew lived in a world where everything was done for him. Meals appeared like clockwork, doors opened before he reached for the handle, problems vanished before they became visible. From sunrise to sunset, a staff made sure his life ran smooth, polished, and perfectly managed. For over 60 years, that was his normal, a bubble of royal convenience built on obedience and service. But now, that entire structure had collapsed. Reports claimed he was left almost entirely on his own, stripped of the invisible army that once made his world effortless. But here's the real question. No one dared to ask out loud. Why were staff refusing to serve a royal at all? What could possibly make trained palace professionals, people whose careers depended on silence and loyalty, suddenly walk away and say, "No thanks"? The truth, insiders whispered, goes way back. Years before the move, before the isolation, before the public downfall. Behind palace walls, there had been talk for ages about Andrew's behavior. Patterns everyone in royal circles quietly knew but never said aloud. Now it seems that reputation had finally caught up to him. And this time, no royal title could protect him. You've got to understand one thing. This staffing meltdown at Sandringham didn't just drop out of nowhere. It wasn't some last-minute drama or an unlucky twist of fate. This had been brewing for years, maybe even decades. Long before the Epstein scandal, long before that disastrous 2019 interview that wrecked his public image, Andrew already had a serious problem behind palace doors. Royal reporters and biographers had been whispering about it for ages. Stories of a prince who was difficult, demanding, and downright unpleasant to work for. There were endless accounts of sharp words, arrogant behavior, and moments that left staff feeling humiliated instead of respected.
You also believe that Andrew lied about when he first met Epstein and about his December 2010 meeting 2 years after Epstein had pled guilty in a Florida court to soliciting prostitution.
Yeah, his line was that he met Epstein in 1999. Well, he was going off to the island literally in February 2000. We know from a letter that Alistair Watson, his own private secretary, wrote to the Times that actually they met in 1990.
One name comes up again and again, royal biographer Andrew Loney. He spent years gathering stories from those who had worked closest to Andrew, and the picture that emerged was shockingly consistent. According to Loney's research, staff described Andrew as someone who spoke harshly when things didn't go his way, lost his temper easily, and created an environment where people felt tense, nervous, and constantly on edge. And these weren't isolated complaints or petty gossip. They were repeated accounts from multiple sources over time, all painting the same troubling portrait. So by the time Andrew showed up at Sandringham, the damage was already done. His name inside palace walls carried baggage, heavy baggage. Everyone knew the stories, and worse, the staff talked. In a royal world built on silence and loyalty, that's rare, almost unheard of. The fact that word of his behavior had spread so widely says it all. The problem wasn't just serious, it had become impossible to hide. Then came the Epstein fallout, and that's when everything blew wide open. November 2019 marked the turning point. Under fierce public backlash over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew announced he was stepping back from royal duties for the foreseeable future. But here's the truth. That foreseeable future never ended. He never came back. By 2022, things got even messier. Andrew reached a financial settlement with Virginia Giuffre in a U.S. civil case, a move he insisted wasn't an admission of guilt. Still, Reuters later tied that very settlement to reports of his quiet departure from Royal Lodge, framing the move as part of a much bigger web of unresolved controversy. The shadow of that scandal followed him everywhere. By late 2025, whatever little position Andrew still had inside the royal family crumbled completely. People magazine reported that King Charles had officially stripped him of his remaining titles and honors, turning what had been a slow fade into a formal exile. The message was crystal clear. Andrew was no longer a working royal. And here's where the story takes its sharpest turn, because the moment that royal safety net vanished, everything changed for the staff. When Andrew still held his titles, serving him, no matter how uncomfortable, was seen as serving the monarchy itself. It was duty, not preference.
In terms of meeting him after he served a period, didn't really serve a correctional term, but 08 to 09, he basically was on day release from the prison. And Andrew continued to see him. He had the famous goodbye in December 2010, where he stayed for 5 days and had a dinner party thrown in his honor. But we now know from legal depositions in other cases that he was still in touch with him and having meetings in 2011.
But once those titles were gone, that layer of protection disappeared too. Suddenly, the staff weren't working for the crown anymore. They were just working for him. And for many inside those royal walls, that single shift made all the difference. Once those titles were gone, once Andrew was officially cut off from public duties, the message from the palace couldn't have been louder. He no longer represented them. And from that moment on, everything changed. Staff weren't serving the monarchy anymore. They were serving Andrew. And only Andrew. A man whose name had become tangled in scandal, whose temper was whispered about in every corridor, and whose reputation carried more risk than reward. This wasn't about duty anymore. It was about self-preservation. Why would anyone want to attach their name, their career, their reputation to his? To work for him now meant stepping straight into controversy. And everyone at the palace knew it. And that's what makes the next move so shocking. The unprecedented choice. For the first time in living royal memory, staff were officially told they didn't have to serve Andrew if they didn't feel comfortable. Can you imagine? That's a line that had never been crossed in royal history. Royal households run on hierarchy, obedience, and absolute loyalty. Discretion isn't optional. It's a rule written in stone. You don't question an assignment, you don't refuse a posting, and you definitely don't say no to a royal. That's how it's always been, century after century. Except now, in February 2026, everything flipped upside down. According to Marie Claire and People magazine, palace officials gave clear permission for staff to opt out. And according to those same reports, many didn't hesitate. They walked away. So ask yourself, what does it mean when the palace, an institution built entirely on silence and loyalty, gives its own employees the green light to refuse a prince? It means they knew something serious. They were bracing for fallout, and they weren't willing to protect him anymore. The palace knew exactly what would happen. They knew that if they tried to assign staff to Andrew the old-fashioned way, simply announcing, "You'll be working for him now," there'd be chaos, refusals, resignations, maybe even public complaints that would spill straight into the headlines. So instead of waiting for that disaster, they got ahead of it. They preempted the rebellion before it began. By giving staff the freedom to choose, they turned refusal into something acceptable, even expected. But here's what makes that move so stunning. Sandringham isn't staffed by temps or outsiders. It's one of the royal family's most established estates, run by loyal employees who've served with quiet precision for decades. These aren't rookies. They're professionals who know the royal system inside and out. And yet even they were saying no. That's how deep the hesitation ran. For these long-serving staffers, being assigned to Andrew wasn't just uncomfortable. It was dangerous for their reputations.
Taken by Jeffrey Epstein.
Taken by Jeffrey Epstein. And there's Ghislaine Maxwell. There's The Flash. That's me at 17. And that's Prince Andrew with his chubby fingers.
And we know what happened next.
And that's right before I was abused by him.
The risk didn't stop at the estate gates. It followed them into the public eye. Think about it. These are people who've witnessed every royal headline, every investigation, every lawsuit, every scandal. They've seen how one wrong association can stain a lifetime of service. For them, working for Andrew in 2026 wasn't an honor. It was a liability. So when the offer came, many simply walked away. And honestly, can you blame them? If you'd built a career defined by loyalty, professionalism, and royal discretion, would you want your name tied to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor now? Would you want that shadow hanging over your resume for the rest of your life? The answer from inside Sandringham was loud and clear. Absolutely not. Without the royal buffer, Andrew was on his own, for the first time ever. The public didn't stay quiet for long. Once word spread that Prince Andrew had been quietly moved out of Royal Lodge and left struggling to find even basic staff, the media went into overdrive. Tabloids, talk shows, and social feeds lit up like wildfire, and everyone had an opinion. Headlines painted him as the prince no one wants, while commentators called it the final act in his royal downfall. The Guardian wrote that his isolation symbolized the monarchy's effort to save itself by cutting away its weakest link. Meanwhile, The Sun splashed photos of Royal Lodge's darkened windows beside bold captions like, "Locked out of the palace life." Every detail of his midnight move was dissected, questioned, and spun into headlines that refused to fade. On social media, the reaction was fierce. Some people mocked him. Others expressed disbelief at how fast he'd fallen, but the overwhelming tone was one of frustration. Frustration that it had taken this long for consequences to finally reach him. Memes flooded Twitter and TikTok, showing Prince Andrew's new job opening his own door, turning royal disgrace into viral entertainment. Inside royal circles, the silence was deafening. No statements from Buckingham Palace, no soft PR defense from royal aides, nothing. That silence spoke volumes. It was clear the institution wanted distance, total and undeniable distance. They weren't stepping in to protect him this time, not even with a polished press release. What's unfolding now isn't just a royal embarrassment, it's a public reckoning. For years, Andrew's controversies simmered behind palace walls, hidden by protocol and privilege. But now, under the full glare of public judgment, that shield is gone. Every headline, every whisper, every viral post is rewriting his legacy in real time. And this time, there's no royal rescue coming.
But he did have a nickname, but it's a bit rude for me to tell you one I'll tell you, but you're not going to be able to air it. It was just called, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
It was called the plain and simple, because unfortunately, he upset everyone he come across. He was the most unpopular member of the royal family while I was there. And he was just rude, arrogant. I mean, his sense of self-entitlement was breathtaking.
Behind palace gates, the silence surrounding Andrew's downfall has been chilling. It's not just quiet, it's strategic, deliberate, and absolute. Every royal move now feels carefully choreographed to make one thing clear: Andrew is on his own. Sources close to the palace told the Times that King Charles has no intention of revisiting Andrew's position within the royal fold. Translation: there's no comeback plan, no second chance, no hidden path to redemption. The king's focus is on the monarchy's survival, not on repairing his brother's shattered image. Even Queen Camilla, known for her sharp instincts in managing royal optics, has reportedly urged a clean break. And so far, that's exactly what's happening. At family events, the distance is visible. During private gatherings, insiders say Andrew often arrives separately and leaves early, his presence tolerated but never embraced. The warmth once reserved for a royal son has been replaced with formality, polite, controlled, and cold. Even his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, have been keeping a low profile, navigating that impossible line between loyalty to their father and allegiance to the crown. Prince William's stance is even clearer. According to reports, he views any attempt to rehabilitate Andrew as damaging to the institution. His focus is on the future of the monarchy, and that future doesn't include scandal. Behind closed doors, William's voice carries weight. And that means Andrew's exile isn't just emotional, it's official. The message coming from every corner of the royal circle is unmistakable. Andrew's era is over. The doors that once opened automatically are now firmly shut. The same system that once protected him is now preserving itself. By pushing him out, and in that royal silence, one truth echoes louder than ever. When the crown feels threatened, even blood ties aren't enough to save you. So here we are. The final chapter in a royal story that once seemed untouchable. Prince Andrew, once a symbol of privilege and position, now stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when power outlasts accountability. From the grand halls of Royal Lodge to the quiet corners of Sandringham, his journey has turned from prestige to isolation, from command to consequence. The royal machine that once shielded him has now moved on, stronger, leaner, and determined to protect its image at any cost. For Andrew, that means no more buffers, no more favors, no more quiet rescues behind closed doors. His reputation, his connections, even his legacy have been stripped away piece by piece until all that's left is a man facing the reality of his own choices. In the public eye, this isn't just one man's downfall. It's a shift in how the monarchy handles scandal. The once unbreakable wall of silence has cracked, replaced by quiet exile and strategic distance. The royals are learning to survive by cutting loose their liabilities. And this time, Andrew is the example. He's gone from royal privilege to royal outcast, from titles to tabloids, from handshakes to headlines. And the world has watched every step of it unfold. The message couldn't be clearer. No one, not even a prince, is untouchable anymore. If this story grabbed your attention, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Tell me, do you think the palace did the right thing by distancing itself? Or is this royal punishment going too far? I want to hear your take. Because as this saga keeps unfolding, one thing's for sure, the crown may be polished, but its cracks have never been more visible.